All right, gang, welcome back. So this is an addendum to the oscilloscope video we made. So if you haven't seen it, please go back and watch it. You can probably click right here. All right, so what this video is about calibrating the scope probe, actually. All right, so this is a possibility, and we're going to talk about why we want to do that. That said, I will highlight that a lot of this video is understanding how we're calibrating the probe, and you need to know the frequency. You need to know about the frequency response function about Fourier series to fully grasp it. That said, towards the end of the video, we actually calibrate it, and you don't need to understand it to be able to calibrate a probe. So please go to the end if you're not interested necessarily about understanding it. Okay, so here's the idea. We have a signal, it goes through the probe and onto the oscilloscope. What we don't want to do is, remember that the probe is itself a system, it's a block. What we don't want to do is have the probe affect the signal. What we want is signal in equals signal out of the probe, so I want a one-to-one match. All right. Now one perspective to look at that is in the frequency domain. So let's look at that. This is the frequency response function, magnitude versus omega, of the probe. What we want is just a flat line at 1 across the frequency range. There will be a roll-off. Everything has a roll-off, but it won't roll off outside of the bandwidth of the probe. Okay? So what we want to do is be able to adjust this and make it flat. How do we do that? Well, good thing for us, probes have a tuning parameter. Okay? So sometimes it's on the BNC end. So you'll see a little place here where you can adjust what looks like a potentiometer with a little screwdriver. And sometimes, this is a different probe, two different probes, sometimes it's on the tip. So you just need to look for this potentiometer looking thing to be able to calibrate the scope probe. Okay. So what that means is that by adjusting that potentiometer looking thing, we're adjusting the flatness of our frequency response function of our probe. Well, that's great, except for you need to be able to visualize this flatness or lack of flatness. So how do I do that? Well, in a frequency response perspective, what we want to be able to do is send in a sine wave at multiple frequencies across the bandwidth, so across the flat section of this probe, and measure the output sine waves and make sure that it's a one-to-one amplitude and zero phase. Well, that's great, but then I need a whole nother function generator to be able to sweep through all those frequencies, and it sounds like just a pain. All right. Well, we're in luck. All right. I can use a trick, a Fourier series trick. So, if you recall from Fourier series, if I take a square wave in time and I look at its Fourier transform, then what I get is actually a bunch of what looks like this, a bunch of spikes at different frequencies, specifically at the fundamental frequency and then harmonics, 2 omega naught, 3 omega naught, ... Okay? So this is awesome. It means that I can send in one square wave and I get for free all of these these sine waves. So the trick is, I send in this square wave, I view the square wave output, and I adjust the frequency response function until the output looks like a square wave and not sort of a muffled square wave. You'll see in a second. Okay? So that's what we're going to do. Walk with me. All right. So here we are at the oscilloscope. Now again, we got to get a square wave into this scope probe. Well, again, that still sort of says that we need a function generator. But no, we don't, because oscilloscopes know that you're going to want to calibrate your probe. So they have a special post that has that square wave to do it. All right? And it's already been the frequency has been chosen specifically for the bandwidth of this system. Okay, so right here you're going to see a couple of posts. One of them is a ground post, so I'm going to connect to the ground post, and the other one is the signal itself. All right, so I'm going to connect to that, and there you go. You can see that there's a square wave, which is great. All right, now you'll notice the square wave looks like a square wave because I've already calibrated before I started this video. So let's decalibrate it or play with it and see what happens if that knob was the potentiometer was adjusted. Let's look and see what happens. All right, let's go. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to adjust this. Now watch what happens. Look at that. All right, so it's been adjusted, and now I think you would agree that a square wave does not look like a square wave. And that's problematic. It means that your probe is now affecting your system. Now in this case, it's actually accentuating high frequency content. Now I can go the other way, so let me go the other way, and you see it drops. Now it's low pass. Now your roll off is much sooner than it was before, so you're de-emphasizing high frequency. But what we want to do is we want it perfect. We don't want to emphasize and we don't want to de-emphasize high frequency. We just want it flat. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to use this knob to get it as flat as possible. And let's take a peek. It's not, could be done better, but you get the gist, and I'll let you adjust it. So back to what I said in the beginning, you don't necessarily fully have to understand the math behind it. In the end, just go through this procedure, put the square wave in, make it the output look like a square wave, and you're good to go to collect data. All right? Hope this made sense. Have fun. I'll see you next time.